Hey, so Scream 5 has just come out, or as its official title is, just Scream 2022. And so I want to talk about spoilers, okay? So yeah, just there's your spoiler warning for Scream, the one that's just come out in 2022. There's your warning, okay? So first up, I just want to say, there were a few theories going around. Matthew Lillard as Stu does not return. Nothing alludes to that in any way whatsoever. That doesn't happen. Sorry for people who wanted that to happen. Also, there is a shot in the trailer where Ghostface has a metallic mask. That, as far as I remember, did not happen whatsoever at all that I remember seeing. I didn't see it at all, but I asked my wife, to be honest, and she reckons that was part of just this little part that we saw of a stab movie in that movie. So that sounds quite reasonable. I might have just missed that. But either way, the actual Ghostface in Scream 5 does not have a metallic golden mask. That does not happen. It's just the classic white mask the entire time. So little things like that did not happen. But as for now, I'm gonna just kind of run through the plot, talk about who lives and dies and all that kind of stuff. Are you ready? Too bad, because I'm doing it. Okay, so Scream 5 starts off with its opening victim in Tara, who actually ends up getting away, and that's kind of like a subversion of the opening kill that every other Scream movie opens with. You know, right off the bat, we're going with sort of a little twist right there as she gets away. Anyway, following that, we then get into some intrigue into some of the random teenage characters and the group of friends revolving around Tara's older sister, Sam, who is essentially the main character in this movie here. We learn very early on here, though, that Sam is the secret daughter of Billy Loomis, who we'd never learned about before the events of this film. And that is very much what the killer focuses on in this movie, and the whole plot of the killer, it really revolves around this element of her being Billy Loomis's secret daughter and everything. That's kind of like the main crux of this movie. So yeah, it's definitely a little cool twist, but I'm glad that they didn't save it for like the end of the movie as like the big twist. Like, they just tell us pretty early on, and it's just interesting. It builds up the character as to where we think she's going to go. I actually really like that aspect. I feel like they really could have built this up to being this big thing, but more so it was part of her characterization from the start. I think that was a good move to go with. Anyway, as the movie goes, we then get to see some of our legacy characters shine for some brief moments, but it's really more so about the new characters. I gotta warn you, this movie is very much more about the youngins and stuff, rather than the old characters that we all love from the original films. Some of the new characters, though, include this guy named Wes, who is played by the guy from 13 Reasons Why, the main character. Wes, the character name, is obviously very reminiscent of Wes Craven, obviously a homage to him, and so, you know, I enjoyed that. But I do have to say that this guy Wes, because of that name and because of he's like the most famous of the teenage characters in this movie, because of all that, he was my number one suspect. I thought for sure he was going to be the one that was going to be revealed to be the killer, along with his mum, who was Deputy Judy from Scream 4, aka Crazy Eyes Cop Lady, who we all kind of suspected. So because they were both related and I thought they were both pretty high up there on the suspect list, I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's them and they're the duo. But nah, joke's on me, because they died pretty damn early on, like straight away, to be honest. So hey, can't get them all. Anyway, apart from Wes, the other new characters here are Richie, who is Sam's boyfriend, Tara's sister's boyfriend. There's also Mindy, who is basically the Randy of this movie, and she is his niece, along with her brother Chad, his girlfriend Liv, and Tara's best friend Amber. And I know that's a lot of information. I'll chuck up some pictures so you know who the hell we're talking about here. But yeah, this is the main group of the entire film, and they are the ones that are pretty much playing the large parts. Look, there are a few like side characters around as well that we learn like a little bit about, but these are really the main people that we get to know, and these are the people who are really the suspects, because, you know, as the saying goes, everybody's a suspect, and that is definitely a heavy factor when it comes to Scream 5. Anyway, backtracking a little bit from that though, following the attack of Tara at the very beginning, Wes calls up Sam to return to Woodsboro after she'd left long ago, following the news of her real father being Billy Loomis, which she found out when she was 13, and she made a scene and ended up causing her real dad, who like raised her, to leave upon hearing this news, and she's blamed herself ever since and kind of abandoned her family because of it. And yeah, so there's like some conflict there. There's a bit of like humanity there we get to see. There's tragedy in the characters. You love to see it. So now that these characters are returning, and once they've seen Tara, the two characters in Sam and Richie go out to seek help from Dewey, the expert on these matters, basically, who has survived being stabbed 9 times throughout the entire series, as he comments on. So, anyway, they all go over to the hospital where Tara is staying once again and are attacked by Ghostface at this point. They manage to take him down for a second, but it's at this point that upon their exit that Dewey turns around and is like, no, wait a second, I gotta take a headshot here, okay? And frustratingly, he staggers back to Ghostface, and there's this slow build up as he's walking towards it, loading up his gun. It's this badass shot, and I'm getting more and more nervous. I'm super worried, because if there was one character who I need to survive this movie, it is Dewey. So he approaches Ghostface, right? And there they are. Ghostface is unconscious. He's about to shoot him in the head before he gets distracted because he gets a phone call. Stops for just a split second, and of course magically Ghostface awakens in a second and stabs Dewey dead. He is dead. Dewey dies during this moment, and it's fucking brutal. Ghostface slashes, guts, slices up his back, all this stuff, basically tears him to shreds. And it's a really hard watch, to be honest. It's this long, agonizing kill, and it's god damn it, if you had to do that to anybody, why Dewey? He was probably the character that least deserved it. And it was just yeah, I don't know. I didn't want any of the other legacy characters, including Gale Weathers and Sidney Prescott, to die either. But, when it came to Dewey, he was my boy. Please, what are you doing to my boy? And they killed him. It was really frustrating too, because it felt so avoidable, because they were about to leave, but he turned back to, take the headshot on Ghostface and everything. But he took his damn time getting there. And there were just a lot of elements here that felt like it was just so avoidable and so annoying that, they brought this character back 10 years after the last film just to kill him off like that. I just felt very annoyed. It's not a bad film. It's not I'm not saying the movie sucks because they killed this character. If anything, it shows how strong it is because I care about this character so much. But they did it in such a frustrating way is all. And that was kind of annoying to me in a way. But, I'm sure David Arquette probably didn't want to come back for this entire full movie and whatever. He probably was happy to come back just to do this badass kill as the final moment as his character. That's probably I haven't looked into it, but I'm assuming maybe that's part of the appeal to him in being in this movie. I'm not really sure. But anyway, the point is Dewey dies. That sucks. But Scream 5 is still good, and we have a lot more to talk about, so let's get to that. Hearing about the return of an idiot in a Ghostface mask, though, Gale Weathers and Sidney Prescott also return to Woodsboro. Gale and Dewey, by the way, despite being on and off, just backtracking here while he was still alive, they do get a moment together, and it's nice to see. Despite the fact that they are on and off again more than Rachel and Ross were on Friends and all that kind of stuff, it still gets to me every single time you see them interact. Every time they change their minds, they're so topsy-turvy, flip-floppy, they can't decide whether they want to be together or not, and all that kind of stuff. For some reason, I get totally sucked into it, and I'm please, just give them the happy ending that they deserve, please. And now we know that they never get that because, Dewey comes to his untimely death, and that sucks. But that little moment between them was nice. Anyway, following that, Scream then bands all the new characters together and divides them up in Paranoia. This is a movie very much about weary characters being cautious of each other. Betrayals are common too, as we see some of the characters suspect others, even when they literally had nothing to do with things. Like this one moment between Chad and Liv, where he didn't quite trust her, he's not sure if he should go to another room with her and whatever, and it's played mostly for laughs. But there are moments like these between all of the characters where it's they're really playing on that everybody's a suspect kind of vibe to Scream. And it makes a lot of sense here. All of the characters have certain motivations and everything. It's the classic Scream whodunit type of thing, and they do it well. Anyway, following the death of Dewey, it is now here where together Sam, Tara, and Richie decide that they're gonna leave town. Get out of here, Sam, though, realizes that she needs her asthma inhaler when they're in the car. Not wanting to go back to the hospital that they just came from where Ghostface is and, back into danger, they decide to head off to Amber's house on the way and pick one up from there. Amber's house, by the way, just happens to be Stu's house from the original Scream. This is where the climax happened in the very first film, because of course it is, right? And what is happening at that house right at this very moment? A party, because of course it is. And before the characters arrive at this party, there is a scene where Chad is attacked and presumably killed. Everything comes to an end at this party though when they do arrive, as only the key players then stick around. What happens after this is a bunch of finger pointing as all of the characters kind of blame each other as to who the killer is, following the deaths of Dewey, some random guy at a bar that I didn't mention earlier who was literally just there for some extra carnage candy. Like, he is a nothing character, he was just there to die. Deputy Judy, Wes, now possibly Chad, and as well as Tara, who didn't actually die, but she did get attacked. So following all that, they're all starting to blame each other and everything. As the characters around the house start to settle down a bit and separate though, it's here where Ghostface then comes to attack Mindy as she watches Stab, the in-universe inspired movie based on the original events of Scream. And there's this great homage kind of scene where she is yelling at the TV to look behind you as she is watching the movie Stab, as the inspired character from Scream in Stab of Randy yells to look behind you, as we saw in the original Scream where Randy is yelling look behind you. And it's just the best. I love little scenes like these. It's just a bit of fun. And yeah, as you know, as we can predict, behind Mindy then comes Ghostface approaching her from behind as she doesn't see. She does see just in time as he attacks her, but it's too late and he gets her. We do find out later that she doesn't die, but she is down for the count for now, and she's not really much of a character come this final act, so not that much of a spoiler to say there. I mean, I'm spoiling everything anyway, but I'm just saying, like, Mindy, she gets taken out of this scene for the moment, but she doesn't die. Anyway, all of this though causes everyone to regroup in the house and blame each other once more. But everything comes to a head when Amber shoots Liv randomly, revealing that she is one of the Ghostface killers. It was such a shocking moment when it happened, where she just like pulls out a gun super suddenly and just bang, that's one of the killers right there. And I was like really impressed by that because I absolutely didn't see it coming. But then about 5 seconds later I thought about it and I'm like, wait, which character is this again? I feel like this character of Amber is like, honestly, probably one of the least memorable of the main teenage group in this film. And so in retrospect, I was actually a little bit disappointed that she was one of the reveals, because it's like, who? I don't really care. What are you talking about? I forgot that character's name. Actually, I had to ask my friend who I saw this movie with what the character's name was. That's also because I'm an idiot and I forget characters' names. But yeah, in retrospect, a little bit, it felt a bit disappointing that this was one of the killers, because it's like, I don't know, she was just one of the characters. It seemed like an easy choice, Not that I wanted it to particularly be a hard choice. Like, if they made it Sidney Prescott or something who was the killer, that would suck. By the way, Sidney Prescott does not get a lot of screen time in this movie. None of the legacy characters do, and that kind of sucks. Anyway, Amber is now revealed to be one of the Ghostface killers, and I say that because we all know that there are at least usually more than one killer. At some point, I don't remember the order though, we also see that Tara has been placed in a cupboard somewhere tied up by Ghostface, and Sam finds her but isn't sure if she should cut her loose through Paranoia. She's like, I don't know if I should trust you, and all that kind of stuff, and that's where we leave that scene there just for a second, which I'll get back to soon. This is when Sydney and Gail finally arrive at the house though, after hearing about everything that's happened. On their way in, Amber comes bursting out pretending to be hurt though, and in the process though, the two are like, I don't know if I buy this. Do you buy this? And straight away, basically, she gives up the facade, pulls out a gun and starts shooting at him, and shoots Gail in the lower gut, and she gets taken down. Not fatally though, but she can't follow everybody else into the house right now. But yeah, don't worry, she's not going to die right here, right now. Now going into the house, Sydney is seen hunting basically for Ghostface. And there is this scene where she starts shooting through doors before she actually enters them, just in case Ghostface is there, which is kind of smart, I suppose, She kind of has hindsight there, but it's also kind of dumb because you might accidentally shoot people, which she does as she shoots Richie in the leg, who comes down to defend him and her her against Ghostface Amber, but they don't quite see her at the moment. So while this is happening, Sam has a confrontation downstairs with Ghostface Amber. This culminates when Tara joins in and attacks Amber too with her crutches, because if I didn't mention, she's been in like a wheelchair and fucked up this entire movie following the attack at the very start. She kind of gets a bad rap in this movie where she's very unable to do a lot of things, but yeah, this time she goes in for the attack. She doesn't kill Amber, but you know, it's helpful. But this also shows that Sam did actually trust her in the end when she was deciding whether to cut her loose earlier, because come on, they're sisters and they actually do trust each other. It's kind of like this nice unspoken moment that I appreciated, you know? Anyway, going back to Richie and Sydney now, they come downstairs only for Sam to ultimately get stabbed by Richie, revealing that he is the second killer. Basically, it's this dude from The Boys. He was secretly the main killer all along, and he was somebody that we really had to pay attention to anyway, because he, as I said, was the boyfriend of the main character. You know, it's kind of really obvious once you think about it, once you say it all out loud. Like, the boyfriend of the main character, that's such a cliche, that's such a Scream thing as well. Very much like the original and everything. Obviously, that's on purpose, you know, this is a callback to the original. But yeah, the boyfriend being the killer, I didn't mind that. I thought it was actually a pretty good reveal, even if it is obvious in retrospect. I didn't see it coming as it was happening. For some reason, I don't know why, I just thought it was too obvious. So then when they did do the obvious, I wasn't expecting it, which maybe is stupid, but hey, that's what happened. Anyway, so Richie and Amber together are the killers. So they then take Sydney and Sam into the kitchen, as Billy Loomis and Stu did in the original, to basically James Bond explain their plot away and say why they're doing everything that they're doing. And their idea here is to create a traumatic true crime event so horrific that it'll inspire a new reboot of the Stab movies, which are the movies based on Scream within the Scream universe, which I love. Because as we know, we find out about halfway through the movie that Richie's opinion on these movies is that they started to go downhill at number 5, which is also just a hilarious comment because this is the 5th Scream film. I just love that kind of shit. It's just so, I don't know, they're able to poke fun at each other, and I really appreciate that. But basically, their entire idea is based around wanting a movie franchise to come to fruition. You know, they want to improve a movie franchise because they think that all of the fictionalized Stab movies are much worse than the Stab movies that were based on real life events within the Scream universe, which makes sense that it would be number 5 there because Scream 1 to 4 has existed before this movie, so they must have presumably made Stab movies about each of the Scream movies that we've seen. You know what I mean? It's kind of interesting there. I do kind of like that. And yeah, so basically he wants to bring everything back to reality, and his plan is to create this narrative around Billy Loomis's daughter. Basically, he wants to make it so that it might be a plausible idea that the crazy serial killer's daughter is also a crazy serial killer. I guess he wants to do the nature versus nurture thing and say, it's just nature. She's a crazy killer because her dad was. And that's basically the killer's plan here, where they're basically just planning to pin it all on her, all on Sam, and make her look like this crazy killer. And with that being said, yes, it's a ludicrous plan, okay? It's so shallow. They just want to get these movies made. They just want the Stab movies to, like, flourish. And that's just kind of a hilariously shallow, ludicrous plan. But then again, what Scream killers' plans aren't ludicrous and mostly shallow, to be honest. It's kind of in line. It kind of makes a lot of sense. And it comments on the Scream franchise as it does all this as well. I feel like this motivation and twist isn't going to work for a lot of people because it is shallow. It is kind of dumb. It doesn't make that much sense from a rational standpoint. But for me, I think it was fun, and I think it really did work. And if you're looking at it from this crazy idiot psychopath, it makes enough sense, and I like it. I think it is a good motivation. Not in real life. It's a bad motivation if you actually wanted. I enjoyed it. That's what I'll say. But it's here where I kind of realized that it doesn't matter who the actual killers are when it comes to the reveal. It doesn't matter that it's the boyfriend. It doesn't matter that it's the best friend. That doesn't really matter. What matters is who they try to pin this on, being the person who is connected to Billy Loomis, rather than the killers having some sort of personal connection to him. And I kind of like that. It's like turning everything upside down. It's a bit of a subversion, you know, with turning the protagonist into the one with the main link to one of the older villains. I think that that's kind of clever, because they, you know, usually in movies like these, they're like, oh, look, it's Billy Loomis's long-lost cousin coming here to get revenge for him or something. It could have been something dumb like that. And I just feel like this was a bit more of a creative way to go about it. And I liked that we already knew that she was Billy Loomis's daughter from the start. So it kind of gave us room to suspect some things that might have happened and, you know, probably not quite get there, which I appreciate. And the story that the killers are trying to push here is basically all about the legacy of the original and retconning what we all know. Something that Scream has always been known to inform us that sequels do. The two killers are obsessed with the idea of rebooting this horror franchise. It's shallow, but it's kind of awesome in its own meta way, as this is a reboot of Scream itself. I just love that, you know? Anyway, finally after this, the climax takes place as they take Amber down, shooting her multiple times in the kitchen before she falls onto a burning stove and catching fire after being engulfed in flammable hand sanitizer earlier. And she's just like flailing about, just on fire, going everywhere. It's pretty brutal. Scream 5 is kind of metal, man. I like it. Anyway, as for Richie, he is stabbed the fuck out of in the other room by Sam, who is taking control of the situation. And she really just digs into him, you know? She kills him pretty bad. But as Sydney and Gail enter the room, they remind her to always go for the headshot, as Dewey alluded to earlier before his death in the film. And so she shoots him multiple times just to make sure, and I'm like, good. Thank you, Sam. I appreciate that. We need that. We need to make sure the killer's dead. Good job. Then we get a brief jump scare of Amber burnt to a crisp, running back into the room, just, yeah, falling apart, just screaming everywhere, and they just quickly shoot her in the head, and she gets taken out. And now the killers are both dead, and I'm like, damn, that was brutal. You killed the fuck out of them, and I appreciated it. Because Scream 5 is quite a brutal film, at least for a Scream film. You know, the Scream movies are ones that, you know, for horror movies, they're kind of tame on the gore. You know, you do see a fair share of stabs and whatnot, but there's not a lot of, like, you know, blood and guts and everything. But yeah, Scream 5 did up the ante a little bit, and I do appreciate that coming from, like, me as a horror fan. I think some people like me will probably appreciate that aspect to this film. Anyway, from then on, the Scream characters then live on. And it's revealed that even Chad survived somehow. Sydney and Gail thankfully do too. I thought that they were going to kill all of the legacy characters for a second there when Dewey died, and I'm like, damn it, please, don't kill them all. Don't kill Sydney. After all this time, don't bring him back just to kill him. Thankfully, those two do survive, even if, unfortunately, Dewey didn't. Scream 5 was pretty damn awesome, and yeah, that's about everything that happened in the movie. That's about all that I have to say. So, the killers were Tara's best friend and Sam's boyfriend. They worked together to try and inspire a new stab movie, and hopefully a good stab movie. And that's about it. That's their stupid fucking motivation, and I love it. It's good. And basically, the only reason that they chose, you know, Sam was because she happened to be Billy Loomis's daughter. It didn't really have any personal stakes in the matter. It just made narrative sense to them. And I appreciate that. Like, I like that there weren't personal stakes in a way, because it just made it, I don't know, it just made it interesting. I don't know if that makes any sense. But that's about all that I have to say. Thank you for watching, do the things and all that stuff. And Scream 5, it's good. Tell me what you thought and all that stuff. I'm gonna get out of here. Goodbye.